What up, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of the FilmBros podcast. I'm your host, JP. This is my co-host, Josh.
Hey, everyone.
What's going on, everybody? Welcome back. Thank you guys for being here. And, we're going to get started and jump right into the Monsterverse. Today, we're going to be bringing you guys the Monsterverse. We're going to let you guys know our rankings for the Monsterverse. For the people that out there that don't know what the Monsterverse is, it is a series from Warner Brothers and Legendary Pictures that basically wanted to rival Marvel and DC and basically create their own cinematic universe using basically kaiju monsters, Godzilla, King Kong, Mothma, etc., and so on and so forth. But before we get into it, I just wanted to let everybody know that this episode will be a podcast exclusive. There will not be no YouTube video, but good news. All the equipment came in. We've learned everything that we need to learn. We are honestly ramping up and gearing up to get more YouTube videos out there. So if you guys have not yet followed our YouTube is at FilmBros Podcast. Go ahead and follow, share our videos. We have old videos on there as well. Support would be great. But with that, let's jump right into it. So the first movie that came out in the Monsterverse was Godzilla. Came out in 2014, directed by our very own Gareth Edwards. That was the kickstart to the Monsterverse. It had Aaron Taylor Johnson, Elizabeth Olsen was in it. What's his name? Hal was in it. Bryan Cranston was in it.
Said Hal.
Yeah, Hal.
Our audience probably won't even know that.
I hope so. I hope they do. So yeah, a solid first step in the right direction for the Monsterverse. Coming up next, right after Godzilla, came Kong Skull Island. Oh, actually, I didn't even tell you guys what Godzilla's Rotten Tomato score was. It had a fresh score of 76% and an audience score of 66%. Kong Skull Island was the second entry into the Monsterverse franchise with a 75% on Rotten Tomatoes, certified fresh, and a 69% audience score. That's
really low.
What, the audience score? Yeah. I mean, as good and we'll talk about it. Directed by Jordan Roberts. Tom Hiddleston was in it. Samuel L. Jackson, Brie Larson, John C. Reilly, John Goodman, Corey Hawkins. There were so many good people in this cast, but in this cast, it kind of felt like they picked a lot of Marvel alumni in order to, push it forward. I actually, in most of these movies, is mostly Marvel alumni, if you pay close attention. The next entry into the Monsterverse was Godzilla, King of Monsters. Came out 2019, had a 42% Rotten score on Rotten Tomato, and an 83% audience score. So that one has a weird disconnect there.
Yeah, that's so weird.
This one was directed by Michael Daughtry. Had Kyle Chandler in there, Vera Farmiga, Millie Bobby Brown. Ken Watanabe came back to reprise his role. Bradley Whitford, and so on and so forth. Oh, actually, Ice Cube's son was in this movie too.
O'Shea Jackson?
Yeah, O'Shea Jackson.
O'Shea.
I thought it was O'Shea.
No.
O'Shea. I swear.
O'Shea.
No, I swear everybody said O'Shea Jackson.
No way. I don't think so.
I'm googling this real quick. Hold on, guys. Hold on. This is something that we need to settle because I'm actually curious now. O'Shea. I swear it's O'Shea Jackson Jr. Let me see. Bruh.
If it is, that's weird spelling. That's a weird way to pronounce it.
Let me see.
Because it's Oshea.
Right.
His name as well as how to say more interesting.
What the fuck?
to stay tuned to the channel if you enjoy learning.
What are you doing?
I don't know. It was supposed to tell me how to say it, and it was just some dude with a very great voice, in my opinion. I don't know what the hell was that. Okay,
Morgan
well,
Freeman.
yeah. Well, apparently nobody could read it for us, so I'm just gonna assume it's O'Shea Jackson for right now, and we will come to our conclusion later about that one. But moving on, so the final entry for now, because if anybody follows our podcast, they would know that the Monsterverse will continue. I believe we're getting a TV show of just different kind of kaiju, and we're also getting another Kong and Godzilla movie. So the last one in the entry was Godzilla versus Kong. You did the same thing.
I did.
You did the same
It was
thing.
the funniest thing though, because I was looking at the thing and then it said right after it gave the name, it said O'Shaughnessy, and it made, that's why I was laughing. I was like,
I'm mad. Anyway, the final entry into the Monsterverse was Godzilla vs. Kong with a 75% fresh score and a 91% audience score.
that's pretty good.
Yeah, it is. Adam Wingard directed it, and we had Millie Bobby Brown coming back. Alexander Skarsgård was in there. Rebecca Hall, Brian Tyree Henry. I was actually surprised when I seen him in there. I forgot that he was in that movie. Eiza Gonzalez as well, which it was a pleasant surprise to see her in there. Like I was saying though, this is not. It is the final as of right now. We will be getting more MonsterVerse movies. We are getting a sequel to Kong versus Godzilla, which is basically going to be Kong and Godzilla. I guess they're going to be working together all of a sudden. I don't know. I don't know how they went from fighting each other to shaking hands and saying truce. So with that, thoughts as a collective for this MonsterVerse franchise before we get into the ranking of individual movies. My thoughts as a collective is that though these entries are far from perfect, I think the CGI is magnificent in every single one of them. I think that the story, though very small plot in a couple of them, they do their best to deliver, and just the action sequences are immaculate throughout this series of movies. But I honestly, I just can't wait to like jump right into this and dig a little bit deeper. But Josh, as a whole, MonsterVerse, what do you think about this?
As a whole, it's a great universe. Honestly, I wouldn't mind. Like, I've liked these movies since. Well, I guess they're not the same, but in the sense they are. The Pacific Rim movies. Remember those movies?
Yeah, I remember those.
I like these movies where they focus on that sort of thing. Like, if they were to be like, oh, we're connected, I wouldn't mind that problem. They'd have to explain the giant hole in the ground at one point, but
Yeah.
like, I wouldn't mind seeing that sort of thing, and like if they were to come together, but I doubt it pretty much. But as a whole, these movies are great. Even if audience scores don't really like them, but I think that's because a lot of it is just CGI fighting and stuff. The it's not very plot heavy. Like, you're not gonna expect a Scorsese type of thing from these movies, if that makes sense.
Yeah. You're not gonna get master class acting, I guess.
Yeah, like if you think that like Marvel movies nowadays are terrible cinema, like imagine these ones, because we're just expecting them to fight and do their thing. They're not gonna like. I think that's why they kind of attach these big names to them, so that way you could be like, oh yeah, we know this dude. He was Loki and this and that, and that way we reel them in.
Yeah.
So I mean, it's not too big of a deal, because I mean I still like them without all the heavy names, but it's good to have them there.
Yeah. No,
really good movies though.
Yeah, and honestly, I want to like figure out why they went that route where they decided to get all these big MCU stars from the MCU and put them in here. I thought it was honestly kind of crazy to like see them, because I was telling Julie the other day when we were watching the first Godzilla, because it was her first time watching it. I was like, I think I told you too. I was like, man, somebody watched Godzilla and was like, Elizabeth Olsen and Aaron Taylor Johnson, they don't look like husband and wife. They look more like brothers. Let's put them as brothers in the next movie, and they just went full steam ahead. I guess. Yeah, siblings.
Well, I mean, it makes sense. I mean, that movie did well enough for them to get that role, right? Because the Age of Ultron came out when?
I believe that one came out in 2015 or 14, 15? 15?
Something like that.
Like a year later?
Yeah, because Civil War came out in 16.
Yeah.
Yeah, something like that. It's no big deal, I don't think, to include them. But obviously, they weren't busy at the time, so they were just like, "Yep."
Yeah. No. I mean, it's a good kind of like Zoe Saldana. You know how all she does is franchises. I think it's the best way for actors to get work. Probably, in my opinion. If you know what I mean, just if you're in a franchise and you're gonna be in there for a while, that's job security. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
You're gonna have another acting gig down the line. You know that they're gonna need you again, unless unless the script takes a turn and somebody has to die, then that's a different story. But I mean, you're not gonna get that from Marvel. Maybe the Avatar franchise, or maybe they did kill her, but they brought her back. So
I was thinking more of the route of Aaron Taylor Johnson. They Joss Whedon killed Quicksilver, and we haven't seen him since.
That's true.
So fuck Whedon for that. But yeah, Anyway, before we dive into that,
before we go into a Marvel discussion, so let's go ahead and start the ranking. We will probably be doing an individual review for every single one of these movies. So we're not going to give you guys a number score on this one, but we will kind of break down why we put this one above the others and why the other ones kind of got to go lower. So Josh, go ahead and you have something to say?
Well, yeah. Are we no spoilers then, right? Just
try to keep it spoiler free as much. At least we
okay.
give people a chance to go watch the movies if we make it sound enticing enough.
Okay. But real quick, before we start our ranking, we should totally let them hear a word from our sponsor, ZippyStream.
Today's episode is sponsored by ZippyStream. If you are wondering how we make money to run our podcast, it's all because of this innovative platform. Here at FilmBros Podcast, we absolutely love using ZippyStream. It's the easiest way to convert listeners into an email list, but best of all, they find us sponsorship so we can keep making money doing what we love.
Suppose you're also a podcaster thinking about starting one. ZippyStream will help you find and manage a relationship with brands that are relevant to your audience. If you want to learn more, contact us as soon as possible. Everyone that signs up this month will get to claim £10 as a joining bonus, which is around $12 or something like that.
Just reach out to us by email or social media DMs, and I'll put you in touch with the guys at ZippyStream right away. Now back to the pod. All right, so let's go ahead and start with your number 4. Let's start from 4 to first. Your number 4th.
My number 4th. It's Godzilla 2014. It's the first movie in this little universe, but it doesn't do it justice. I think after this one they take a giant step in another direction, because this one it didn't work out the way they expected. It's a good movie, and it gives you the element of like fear and this and that, all the things that it's supposed to give you in a standalone Godzilla movie.
Mm-hmm.
But it falls short, and I think it's because of those certain scenes where, without giving a spoiler, I think you know what I'm talking about, where it's not much to really be seen, if that makes sense. You get what I'm saying?
You're talking about, well, I mean, it should be universally known that Godzilla is not in this movie as much.
Yeah.
He's not, I mean,
I didn't want to say it.
I mean, everybody's going to find out. And if you don't know by now, yes, I think Godzilla probably has 10 minutes of screen time.
He shows up in shadows and mists and stuff like that. So his presence is felt. It's just, you don't see him. And that really throws me off.
That's interesting.
Interesting. And the performances were fine, I guess. Aaron Taylor Johnson and, I lost my train of thought. Scarlet Witch.
Yeah.
What do you call
Elizabeth Olsen.
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 What do you call it? They were pretty much just they were fine, but yeah, they didn't really give me that sense of love between each other. They felt it's not like something was missing. Like they were forced to be a couple. You know what I mean? So it's nothing too bad. It's nothing unwatchable. You can watch it and like, but I think at the end of the day there is something missing. But yeah, this movie it's probably a good start to the franchise. It's just a bad standalone Godzilla movie if that makes any sense.
Okay, I can see that.
Yeah,
I can see that. All right. Moving on, I gotta say my number 4 has to be Godzilla 2, King of Monsters.
What?
Yeah, I didn't like it. Narratively speaking, they threw away a lot that was said in the first one, and they stripped it because of that reason. I feel though they picked up more monsters, they sacrificed the story.
Yeah,
if that makes sense. And that was something for me that I couldn't get over because the first one I really liked. The story was good. Yeah, there wasn't a lot of Godzilla, but the story was pretty solid on its own. Like if you had if that movie was, if you didn't slap Godzilla on there, that movie would have still been a pretty decent movie. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah.
But with King of Monsters, they kind of were like more focused on wanting to have those monster battles and fight. And though it was cool and it was nice to see, I feel like the story really took a sacrificial turn on that one. And like I did like the inclusion of Millie Bobby Brown. I thought she was pretty fun in the movie. So it was I believe her name is what's her name? One more time. Vera Farmiga. That she was in the Conjuring universe movies and stuff like that. I like their addition. I like that they expanded on the monster lore as well. But what happens in this movie feels like they discarded what happened in the first one, and then what happens in Kong versus Godzilla seems like they discarded what happened in King of Monsters. I know I'm kind of jumping the gun by saying it in a different movie, but it kind of discarded some stuff. It's like, I don't know why they're doing that with the Godzilla movies, because to be honest, they built on top of Kong pretty well, but for some reason it seems like they can't please the audience when it comes to Godzilla, if that makes sense. And I feel like that's a big reason why they went so far this way with the first one, and then they went so far this way with the second one, if that makes sense. And that's why I gotta say the second one. Or I'm saying this way, but no, I gotta far left for Godzilla, far right for Godzilla 2, King of Monsters. Like I said, CGI was great. The fighting was amazing. There was a lot of cool stuff. I don't like when, and it kind of became a pickup with this movie, that they make Godzilla stupid. I don't like that. I don't like that in the first one he was hella smart, and in the second one he is so dumb and he's so primal that he just wants to fight everything, and then for some reason fights dumb, but then you see him in other movies and he's hella I just feel like they dumbed him down in this one.
I think as a whole, not really, I'm not trying to bash your placement, but that whole dumbness thing, because I noticed it too. I think where they really fuck up is where like they want you to act like they're these otherworldly beings and they're smart and this and that, but then they'll turn around and be like, oh no, they're dumb because they're still animals.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
So monsters.
like, so like pretty much the whole scene with the orca, or you know what I mean, the little signal thing.
Yeah,
like they'll think for themselves. They'll know that well, if you haven't seen it, King Ghidorah is king and whatnot.
Yeah,
they'll bow to him and stuff, and then all of a sudden, as soon as the thing switches on, they're like, oh, where's the other one?
Yeah,
you know what I mean? And it's clear that like they don't know how to balance that, because they want to be like, oh, it's another smart thing, but then at the same time, all it takes is this machine. No other monster present, just the machine to fool them. Like, it's not very consistent, and I think that's the writer's fault entirely.
That's one of my issues. But yeah, that's why I put it at 4th spot. But I mean, I can understand you, and I'm sure you can understand me.
I get it, yeah.
So I'm telling you guys, we're brothers, and we see the same things, but I'm telling you, we're on 2 different wavelengths when it comes to certain stuff, and that's just crazy facts right there. But all right, moving on. What is your third? Yeah.
Kong Skull Island.
Damn. Cool.
No real big complaints with this one. It does things way better than Godzilla, obviously.
Mm-hmm.
And this is the second installment or third installment.
This one is the second one.
Okay, yeah. So as a standalone film, he's gonna end up going against Godzilla. Otherwise, they wouldn't have brought him up in the first place. You know what I mean?
Oh.
So what it does is it introduces him, and then it gives him a reason to fight. It gives a whole reason into the CGI. The only thing that I wasn't really vibing with were the actors and the writing, if that makes sense. Like, the action was cool. You know, if you shut your brain off and you just be like, you know what, I guess that should happen. Then you're like, all right, cool. We can keep it moving. Yeah. But if you stop to think for a second, you're just like, man, these army soldiers are too stupid. The dudes, the explorers, I guess, are too dumb. Like, like they're doing their best to fool us, and it for me, it doesn't work. Because you would expect Samuel, like, while I understand his motives, Samuel L. Jackson thinking he can take on Kong because he thinks that it's something in him that he would want to prevail in after losing world wars, I guess, two wars. It doesn't sit right with me, if that makes sense.
Oh, I understand his motive to do it. And now it doesn't sit right with me the way they wrote it, because in my opinion, I would have thought, like, the crew would have told him, like, fuck you, we're leaving, you go do that yourself. You know what I mean? But, like, everybody just followed him blindly, and I was just
was my big thing, because it made it look like, because, again, this movie cast, I mean, the casting is stacked. So you had the dude that played Eazy-E from Straight Outta Compton, Dr. Dre from Straight Outta Compton. They made it really look like the dude that played Eazy-E. What was his name? Sorry, stop calling him that guy.
The dude that played Eazy-E. Let me see. Jason Mitchell. Mills. Okay. His name was Mills in the movie.
Yeah, see, so they have Jason Mitchell, basically, like, you can see you could see him disagree. I was going to say reluctantness, but that's a hard-ass word. Yeah. But you can see him disagree, but at the same time, he still follows him and stuff. Yeah. At that point, I think he should have just been like, you know what? Fuck you. Let me be my own person. And that could have been like a whole side plot. Yeah. But, yeah, it's just, it's too dumb, if that makes sense. They try to dumb you out, and at that point, if you like I said, if you shut your brain off, you can totally be like, you know what? I guess that makes sense, but if you think about it a little too hard, you're like, why the fuck would they do that? You know what I mean? Yeah. So that's why I'm giving it the third slot. That's it for me.
Yeah. I see that, and I agree. I feel like, okay, so there's a lot of inconsistencies with that movie too. I know, like, in the beginning when they were flying to the island, at one point they left with only like 4 or 5 choppers, and then when they were getting tossed around by Kong, there was like 18 of those motherfuckers. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know if you ever noticed that part. Notice when the boat pulls up and they're about to go into the storm before they get to the island. Notice how there's one boat and there's maybe like 5 helicopters, 6 tops, maybe 7. Yeah. And then when they're getting thrashed, then when they're going into the storm, there's a wide shot and there's like 18 to 20 helicopters there.
I never noticed it.
No, okay. When you get it, rewatch that and notice that. And then there was one scene too that made me so confused. I didn't know whether I needed to be sad or I was gonna laugh. And you probably know what I'm talking about. But it's the scene where dude is like walking up and he's trying to be heroic. He's like, "Go, leave," and then he's right there. And he's like, "Eat me, come on," and then he just gets smacked. And so I was like, oh, like, was it supposed to, like, am I supposed to be sad, or is it okay if I laugh? Like, that scene till this day still confuses me, because I don't know how to feel, because at first I'm like, oh, he's doing something heroic, he's gonna help, and then that happens, and I'm like, why'd you guys do that?
I think it's supposed to be a comedic moment, because in a natural movie you expect that sort of thing to happen, but you know, you're dealing with monsters that are quote unquote smarter than the average beast. Yeah. So that's why it's like, okay, you know. Like, okay. Yeah, I didn't really feel bad. I was kind of like, oh, what the, like, you know. It's a funny moment. Yeah. I'm not bashing it. This movie does have really good moments like that. Like my favorite. Well, I guess it's not too big of a spoiler, but mine is the with the bamboo spider or whatever the fuck, and he has the legs.
Oh yeah,
They're trying to
that's
kill
cool. Yeah.
it.
Yeah, I'm telling you, but like visuals, like these movies go hard
Yeah.
with visuals. Like
It
I
sucks
kid you
that
not.
we can't just base our opinion on the visuals. Though.
Yeah.
It's not fair.
Yeah, if CGI was all that was graded, like I kid you not, every single one of these movies get like an A+.
Exactly.
But with that, my third pick is Kong versus Godzilla. And so I'm gonna take back what I previously said, and I'm gonna say the trend started with the dumbness with Kong, 100%.
Yeah.
I think it started with that movie, and then it bleeded more into the third installment, which is King of Monsters, and then really bled into Kong versus Godzilla. And though it was a spectacular ride, and I watched it and I laughed, and it was at first glance, if you're just watching it, if you're not really paying attention, it's a fun ride. It's a real fun ride.
That's what I'm saying. Like,
but after like a second watch, or even during the movie, there's a couple times where the very first time that I seen it, where it caught me a couple times, and I was like, that's kind of weird. They try to play the audience so stupid just to keep the plot moving forward, and that irritates me within this movie, and that's why I'm putting it in the third slot, because though they didn't do it as bad as King of Monsters, but this one they try to play you stupid. Look, I'm not gonna say anything that wasn't in the trailers already. They transported this monkey on a boat. Okay? Now they played, this is where they played Godzilla dumb. They made him play dead after the fight or whatever, and he was just like, okay. And then he like leaves, right? And then in the next scene over, they're carrying him with helicopters. Why didn't they just carry him with helicopters in the first place? Why what was the point of the boat? What was the point of the boat if we could have just carried him with a helicopter net a long time ago?
Yeah.
Put him to sleep, take him all the way over there. Another thing, they go into they go to the place where they need to go. Why is it that we go through all this hoop jumping, and at the very end, Godzilla could just blast a deep ass hole into fucking Hong Kong and get to where they were? But they literally warped through wherever, got through all this stuff, and all of a sudden, like, and like he's there.
You just do it into the center of the earth.
Like, why didn't they just drill? If that was the case, and it was right under Hong Kong, right underneath their base, why didn't they just drill? So this movie makes you this movie tries to play you dumb so many times throughout the movie, just to keep the plot going forward, just to keep the fighting going forward. And I get it, but like I said, if you turn your brain off and you look at it, yeah, it's a really fun ride. Especially, like I said, the CGI, the part where they're on the boat, like, and he comes out the water, and there's like the mist coming off and the fur movements and everything, like, clean. Godzilla, clean. Like the punches. One thing that I love, that movies really started picking up after the Pacific Rim movies, is or picked up a lot more, I would have to say, is the whole giant monsters fighting and those slow punches that end with like a hard ass hit. You know what I mean? Like, like when they stumble,
yeah.
and they're like doom doom or whatever, and like you can see, like, where it looks slow to us is probably big strides and really fast for them.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And I think that's fucking cool. I like how they did that, and I like how the fight sequences work out between Kong and Godzilla. I'm not gonna spoil it for you to, for those who haven't seen, but in my head, I think it's a tie. I don't know. That's just
me. Don't do this. Don't do this.
But yeah, anything to say, or you want to wait until you get to yours?
Fuck. No real big fighting against what you're saying, because again, with this whole series, there's a lot of give and take. You have to kind of be like, I guess, you know what I mean?
Yeah, I guess this has to work out like this. Yeah,
and like that's why I'm doing my best to just be like, you know what, okay. You know, like
By like fun rides and everything.
yeah.
Okay,
Because
yeah, I
like,
get you.
because I mean, you could totally rip into it. Like I said, you're not gonna get Scorsese writing. You're not gonna get performances like Robert De Niro in these movies. Like there's no way. Even with talented actors like Samuel L. Jackson, I'm just saying. I am, you know.
Yeah, yeah.
But
I get
moving
you.
on.
Yeah, move on.
My
Let's
my number 2 is
What is it?
Godzilla versus Kong.
Okay.
I really like this one, and granted, you pretty much mentioned all of its flaws, but I still enjoyed it for what it was. I think the story it's a little better, and then you get a little bit more backstory into the kaiju and who and what Kong is exactly. I don't agree with
The tie?
Yeah, I don't. Not the tie. I don't agree with how it ended. You know.
Oh, okay.
I don't agree with that, but in the end, I guess I can get behind it because Godzilla's supposed to be.
No spoiler.
No, I mean no. I mean this is like common knowledge. King Kong, Godzilla.
Yeah,
you know
yeah,
what I mean?
yeah.
So, what's a king to a god is I guess what I'm trying to say.
Yeah,
if that
yeah,
makes sense. But it's not nothing too bad about it other than what you mentioned. I did wish we'd explore more of the world that
The in between or whatever.
whatever the fuck it's called, Neo world, whatever the fuck it was called.
Yeah.
But we do get is interesting enough. Hopefully in the next film they do dive into it. But it just means that like, you know, everything else.
Yeah.
What I don't agree with too much is how like it's no spoiler that Cyborg or Robot Godzilla, whatever his name is.
Oh, Mecha
Godzilla. It's no surprise that he's in the movie. They show you in the trailer. I don't agree with how he came to be, but that's a big spoiler, I guess.
Mhm.
So that we'll just have to wait for when we do the review.
Yeah.
But I don't agree with that too much. But yeah, I think second place it deserves its flowers. The CGI is great. This is the one where I'm like, okay, I just want to see you two duke it out. I'm ready to shut my brain off. Let's just move on.
Yeah. And one more thing about Kong versus Godzilla, I really sorely hated his character in this movie, and I thought I was gonna like him like a lot because he was in Deadpool 2, but it was where is he? What's his name? Ooh, I can't find him. Oh, this guy, Julian Dennison, the Australian kid in the movie.
Yeah, Australian.
The Millie Bobby Brown friend.
Oh,
the big dude.
okay.
He was in Deadpool 2, you remember? He was the friend, the one that put the shiv, he keistered it.
Oh, yeah.
You remember?
Yeah.
Yeah, he was in that one. I didn't like him too much in this movie. I didn't like him in Kong vs. Godzilla. I think he was just a little too annoying for me in this one.
That's true. He was a bit distracting. And when you were supposed to take things seriously, he was kind of like, hey, you know? Yeah. But
Yeah.
I think it's fine. And, you know, it's not the best, but it does. I think it just deserves second IMO.
Yeah. I see where you're coming from. But my second has to be Skull Island. Kong Skull Island. Yeah, I think some of the performances in there is kind of like but to be honest, if I want to be 100%, where I think the performances came from were, I don't know if it's like a spoiler, but like were from the ones that were gonna be gone from the movie first, if that makes sense.
Oh.
That's where we kind of got the lowest of the low kind of performances that I noticed that like you knew, or I mean, if you guys watch this movie, try to like point it out or whatever and let me know if I'm wrong or right. But I literally I was like, okay, yeah, I don't think this guy's lasting too long, or I don't think this one is gonna, you know what I mean? And then sure enough, dropped like flies. So I was like, cool, whatever. And then just those little inconsistencies, that the helicopter thing that I told you about, and I think that's basically it, because everything else seemed to square up just right. I think the CGI was good. They gave a reason for Kong to showcase himself, and I think they played it smart by making him small and a child in this one, because though he was a baby, he was still like ginormous to humans, and he was still able to hold his own and fight back. I think the end fight between him and the main person was
The skull
amazing.
Thing?
Yeah, the skull thing, the skull crawler or whatever.
Yeah.
I thought that was pretty cool. Yeah, the lore within Kong when John C. Reilly would speak on it, like they explained it pretty well. I like the little nod that they had in the scene where to like kind of that relationship between because you remember the old Kong movies, it was a relationship between Kong and the beautiful blonde girl, right?
Yeah.
Well, there was that one scene where Brie Larson, she basically walked out there and they saw each other, and it kind of was like, it felt like a little callback to that. And then they, he kind of was like, nah, bitch, you ain't gonna get me like that, and like went the other way kind of thing. So it kind of felt like they were paying homage to other Kong movies as well. So all in all, and like I said, the CGI, the water, the fur, everything, like this movie's just a fun ride, and that's why I gotta give it a second, because it's really good. In my opinion, it's one of the better ones.
That's fair. I get that.
Yeah.
Nothing really to talk about. I pretty much covered it in my spiel when I gave it third place.
All right then. So
my number one.
Yeah, what is that?
It is. Sorry, I forgot the name. Godzilla King of Monsters. I really like this one. Actually,
Damn, and this one's the one with the lowest Rotten Tomato score.
Maybe that just says something about me, but I don't know. I really like this one. Granted, I do know when you talked about it, it does do dumb things. They're trying to draw that line between, oh, he wants to be Apex, and then, where it's like, oh no, he's just a dumb animal, whatever.
Yeah.
It makes sense.
So what's your number one?
My number one is Godzilla King of Monsters. While you did talk about it, and gave it its negatives and positives, I like this one because pretty much of the action. I really like seeing King, or I keep saying King, but Ghidorah. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that right, but
yeah.
I like the way they treated him.
Oh yeah, he was a badass.
Not just lore wise, but sticking to it in the end for giving him his little backstory, and then the way they did things. I'm trying my best not to give it away, but the way they did things between Godzilla and him and their relationship and the other monsters' relationship. The only like bad thing, other than what you mentioned, is like where did the other ones go? You know what I mean?
Yeah,
that was my big thing. After pretty much the dust all settled at the end, I was like, well, where did the rest of them go? That big, I don't know if it's a spoiler, but like the big ass mammoth and things like that.
Yeah, they didn't explain that in Kong versus.
Yeah, that's
Godzilla.
right. So like, hopefully they explain it. I know they give. This isn't a big spoiler, but I know towards the end, like in the end credits, they tell you that like, oh, life is sustaining better on Earth because of them and stuff. So they tell you something like that, but I still want to know where they went.
Yeah.
Are they just like, kind of like how the dinosaurs were in Jurassic Park or whatever? Are they just roaming around and scaring the fuck out of people,
That's the issue with these movies, man. It's the cliffhangers, bro. It sucks.
They don't really deep dive into it, but I still like it. The action does great. Millie Bobby Brown is probably my favorite performance out of this, and that's crazy because I'm not too jazzed about her 11. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So
no, she does a pretty good job in this movie for sure.
And then
I think even though too, like she seemed like she wasn't so interested in being in Kong versus Godzilla, I feel like she put up a good performance in that one too.
So you can tell she's still giving it somewhat of a performance, even if it isn't too big. But yeah, number one, King of Monsters. I think it is. If I could just process what I'm saying for a second, to me, this is the line where where these monster movies can really go. Like, yeah, dumb things are gonna happen to push the plot, but in the end, you kind of just got to be like, I'm here mainly for the big fights. So
yeah, I get that, and I completely understand. I don't know if this kind of says if you're smoking crack, because this is the lowest rated one out of all of them. To be honest, like I said, all in all, I'm not even gonna bash you for it because all in all, I think they're all a fun ride.
Yeah.
I think they're all a fun ride.
Yeah.
I like if I want to go and watch two monsters fight each other or any kind of monsters fight each other, I can go rewatch these movies, turn my brain off, and I'll have a good time. But the one movie where like I didn't need to turn my brain off, where it had really good story, had really good plot, really kept the story going, railed it down, was Godzilla, and that's my number one.
Yeah.
And it's my number one because they, like how you said, as a standalone movie on its own, it's amazing. Like if you look at it completely away from, like I said, take Godzilla out of it, take his name off, it's still a really compelling story.
Yeah.
Granted, Elizabeth Olsen and Aaron Taylor Johnson's chemistry wasn't there, but I mean, how much screen time did they actually see each other? You know, I think that's one thing too that really hurt the movie because you only see them in the beginning, and then they don't talk to each other the whole movie. She's trying to get to him, he's trying to get to her, and the son, and it's like you don't see them at all. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
They never meet,
Mm-hmm.
and and then like, yeah. So sorry guys, spoiler, but the end they reunite, and it's just you don't feel anything for them because throughout the whole movie they're not together. So I gotta say that's where it faults, the relationship, the love thing within the movie. But I think everything else does pretty well. Another thing that I hated was that they teased Bryan Cranston a lot, and I was like super excited.
Mm-hmm.
And so if you guys get around to the movie, you'll understand why I kind of got disappointed with it. But at the end of the day, he did his thing when he was there.
Yeah.
Everybody did their thing when they were there. That movie, like I said, is just crazy. It's like you said, Godzilla wasn't showed a lot, but his presence was felt. And I think that was like a good way to introduce him because it felt like you didn't have to wait. It felt like you didn't have to have him shoved in your face like, yeah, Godzilla's here, bitch. Like he's here to fucking, wreak havoc and do all that stuff. Kind of like the last Godzilla movie that came out back in the 90s, the Godzilla with what's his name? Forgot his name.
I know what you're talking about.
Yeah, the 1999 one
where they treat him as like a
dinosaur.
Like a dinosaur.
Yeah, and he's like, they try to capture him and everything. Like that Godzilla was just wreaking havoc and rampage because it was just a monster trying to do whatever. This one, in this movie, Godzilla was smart. He was strategic. He showed himself when he needed to. He was tracking like he was supposed to. I still remember that scene, and it's in the trailers, and I remember the scene because in the theaters, it like literally it felt crazy. But that scene where they're in the airport and all you see is his foot hit the ground, boom, right there. That shit chills, bro, chills. Like the way it was crafted was masterclass. I do think, and it does suck that there wasn't a lot of Godzilla in it, but I think that's what for me made the movie so special was that it really focused a lot on the story and it didn't rely on monsters fighting to drive the story. You know what I mean? And I think that's what the rest of the series does.
Yeah, I guess that's fair. I mean, two different sides of the spectrum with that one, but it's cool. No real problems with that, but yeah, I mean, other than what I said about it, that's about it. It does suck that you don't get much out of the main cast. You know what I mean?
I think we basically went back.
Yeah, probably, huh?
Yeah, because it sounds like it. Yeah, I think we just basically put each one on the opposite end.
Well, I mean, that just makes sense, because you're gonna process things differently, and as long as you get my logic for each one, it's fine.
Yeah, but totally. But I had cut you off. You were gonna say something. Do you remember?
Well, yeah, it was pretty much about the cast. You know what I mean? Like maybe that's why, for me, I just couldn't get behind it too much because, yeah, I want to focus on the story, but the story doesn't really give me much to care about other than that they're fighting Godzilla. If that makes sense.
Well, I really can resonate with the with Eric Taylor Johnson's just wanting to get home to his family. It's not necessarily that he wants to fight Godzilla, is that he wants to get back home to his family, and he was kind of put there because he, in his head, stopping Godzilla saves his family. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So what he can either go and like risk dying with his family, or go and completely stop this thing so it could save his family, you know? So
Yeah.
I can kind of resonate, kind of see and kind of understand where Gareth was doing, because I honestly think he was a masterclass in this movie. And it's crazy because he made this movie right after he made Rogue One, and basically just basked in the glory, and just like he still till this day has not even put out another movie.
He's just like, man, that's enough.
Yeah, like that's all you get from me.
You get one kaiju movie and one badass Star Wars movie. What more could you want from me? Is what he's saying.
So he's living his best life. I genuinely though, like, I do think every single one of these movies. Well, I don't think the first Godzilla's like a fun ride. I feel like that one's more like a thriller.
That's what I'm saying. Like this one, that one, it tries to do something other than set up the universe. It tries to be something new, something we haven't seen before. And again, that's what makes it good as a standalone. But it's sort of weak when you realize, oh, these other three movies are connected behind it. What the fuck? They didn't spend any time explaining that at all. You know?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, because I barely noticed on the rewatch that they actually put Monarch stuff in the first Godzilla movie.
They did?
Yeah, they did. So I was like, oh, okay, like they do try to establish that connectivity, but only with Monarch. That's about it. Everything else is unknown. So I'm just like, okay, but yeah, I think you're right. So it's not really like that fun ride that you expect from the other three. It's just the damn, this fucking movie is good. Like, why is it actually like keeping me kind of on the edge of my seat right now? You know what I mean? But yeah, I see now. I understand what you mean. Like, out of all four of them, he does look like the odd child, the black sheep. You know what I mean? Damn, that's crazy.
If they would have done that, like maybe if say the universe wasn't connected, you know what I mean? Somewhere down the line, they're like, you know what? Let's do King of Monsters, and let's allude to something bigger. Like, imagine how scary, you know, take the tone and all that of 2014 Godzilla and put it on Ghidorah. You know what I mean? That would be scary as fuck. And they did some scary shit with him in King of Monsters, I think. But imagine how much of a menace he'd be if they did some shit like that with him.
Yeah, no, it would be kind of crazy. I don't know. It'd be a good pitch for a future movie.
Exactly.
Call him up, Legendary.
Exactly.
Call him up
Hire
right
me
now. But yeah, I can't wait to see where these movies go, because it makes perfect sense. It's a fun ride, kind of a different beginning, but a fun ride towards the tail end. And so I wonder if they're gonna continue with that.
I hope.
I wonder if they're gonna continue with just here's some fucking monsters hitting each other, or are we gonna actually like dip in back? Because I don't know, like the way I see it as the movies go by, it went from keeping it serious with the first one to becoming a serious yet fun ride with Kong, and then it just goes into like the biggest fucking frenzy in King of Monsters, and then with Kong versus Godzilla, that's when it just goes bonkers.
I don't know how you top Mechagodzilla, but we just gotta wait and see.
Yeah, I think they jumped the gun with that one, and they really fucked it up too when they put it in the trailer too. I think that was in it.
I know everyone was alluding to that, and the fact that you were able to just see him for a second clip, and people were like, "Hey," you know.
At least with like No Way Home, they erased the other two. You know what I mean?
They tried to erase him.
Like it was still a bad job, but like at least they tried.
Foreign trailers fucked that up. I'm talking about USA trailers put Mechagodzilla in for like a second. People saw those rockets and were like, hey, you know what I mean? Like, there's no way.
Who would have thought? Come on, America. We're supposed to be smarter than that.
Oh my God.
Jesus.
Market your shit better is all I'm saying.
But that being said, that is our ranking for the Monsterverse. Like I said, we will be putting out individual rankings. I guess we're just like the DCU, where we just try to put an ensemble together and then just give it as standalones later.
Yeah.
But we're gonna go ahead and put out our own reviews for that, every single one separate. If there's any reviews that you any movies that you want us to review, if there's anything that you want us to talk about on this pod, Josh, let them know where they can do that and where they can follow, like, subscribe, and yeah.
If you want to hit us up at any time, Twitter, TikTok, and Instagram. Sorry I spaced out there for a second. I don't know. I was not expecting the ball. At FilmBros Podcast, you can follow us on there. You can hit us up for movies and news. Anything you want us to cover specifically. We can try and do music and games. That's up to y'all. But if you want to listen to our other episodes, Spotify and Apple Podcasts at FilmBros Podcast. If you want to support us in a big way, Zippy Stream at FilmBros Podcast. You get access to our full catalog, and all it takes is your name and email, so you don't even got to pay anything, really. So, and you also get to hit us up privately for any news and film you want us to cover. So you can do that if you want. And then
Perfect.
YouTube at FilmBros Podcast, so you can just sit down and watch us for an hour. I know this one is podcast exclusive, so you're gonna have to stand up and do work while you listen to this if you want. But you can check out our other ones.
Yeah, but just to say again, go follow that YouTube. We will be having YouTube videos be put out very soon. So keep an eye out for that. We will be on these platforms and also on YouTube. So follow us on our YouTube at FilmBros Podcast. With that being said, we thank you guys for coming again, and we'll see you guys on the next one.
Talk to you guys later.